Hi, and welcome to session 2. Okay, so we start every session with a recap of our previous learning. So at the moment, that's kind of quite a small recap. As we get through the course, this recap kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger and can become quite a big job even by itself, which almost then makes a session twice the length. Okay, so be prepared for that. So I am going to ask you to factorize. So this is what we were learning last session, okay? And then I'm going to ask you to solve these quadratics by factorizing. And again, I've written it's assumed knowledge from grade 5. So this was done in the grade 5 course. We're just doing a quick check-in to make sure that we know what we're doing there. So if you can hit pause, have a go at those questions, and then press play when you're ready. All right then, so those are the answers to the first two. Oh, let me just pull that down a little bit. There we go. Now, if it hasn't gone brilliantly, when we get onto the next section of this session, I will be going through the full steps again. So you will get an opportunity to see it again. But remember, the recap isn't a test. So you can always go back, look at your notes and help yourself. All right. The second two, you can see I've highlighted them. I've highlighted them because they're not technically finished. Okay, so these aren't the answers yet. What I've done is I've factorized and I've written the equivalent equation, but I haven't solved it. I just wanted to do that with you to make sure that you did know what you were doing. Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at that now. Let's do the first one. So we've got x minus 10 x minus 7 equaling 0. Now, there is a number in here. If x was 20, 20 minus 10 is 10, and the number would be 10. So remember that this expression inside the bracket is just a number I don't know yet. And this number that I don't know is being multiplied to this number that I don't know. Okay, the two brackets are squashed together. So it's this times this. I want to make 0. Anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. So I use that fact to help me get solutions to these equations. If I can make this bracket here equal 0, it doesn't really matter what's going on in there because 0 times whatever is going to equal 0. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that 0. What will x need to be in order for a 0 to appear when I take away 10? Okay, that's the question. X would need to equal 10. 10 take 10 is 0. And then I do the same thinking on the other bracket. If this is 0, it really doesn't matter what's going on there. So what is my x got to be to make 0 in that bracket? X would need to be 7. So those would be the solutions to the actual factorized version of my quadratic, so to speak. Okay, let's look at the other one. Okay, so we've got, I wonder if I can slot that in so it's where it lives now. There you go, look. X is equal to 10, x is equal to 7. On this one, which I'm going to just drop down a little bit so it's not all squashed together, x is going to equal 7. 7 takes 7 is 7. And x is going to equal, and I need to be very careful here, it's not going to be 2 because 2 plus 2 is 4. It's not making me a 0. I need to put in minus 2. And that is true of this type of question. When you don't have a number in front of the x, when it's just a plain old simple x, I can take the number and just use the opposite sign. So one of the things that we're going to be learning about today is sketching the corresponding graph. So we have a quadratic. We can draw quadratics. Here we're working in algebra. We want to bring the two together. We don't want to see them as separate topics because they are exactly the same thing. So to draw, I would first of all need a set of axes. So there it is. That's my set of axes. There's nothing pretty about that whatsoever. Let's just make it a bit more central. I'm not bothering to put any numbers on because I'm going to sketch the graph. And when you sketch a graph, you're being asked to just give a general feel for it. There is no accuracy, but there is a general feel. And that is what we're going to be trying to achieve here, okay? So I'm going to take this quadratic that we've just done and got the solutions of, and I know 3 specific things. I know that the x will equal 7 and the x will equal -2. That is the crossing point of my graph. So I've got -2, let's say, roughly here. 7 would be a little bit further along there. So I know those 2 things. The other thing I know is that it's going to cross the y-axis because of this fact here on the original question. I know it's going to cross the y-axis at -14. I just need to make sure it crosses in the negative part of the axes. I'm not trying to draw anything to perfect scale. It doesn't, that doesn't need to be, you know, like a requirement of a sketch. So what I would do is I would now do my best to just draw a curve going through with a bit of symmetry about it, because they have that symmetry. So I don't want to lose that. So by eye, I do a rough curve. And then we should, I don't have the space often in some of the answers that I've done you later on, but it's really good practice to then put on those key points. So this is coordinate -2, 0. This is coordinate 7, 0. And this coordinate here is 0, -14. Or you could just mark on the actual axes, -2, 7, -14. But that's quite good notation and a really great thing to include. Okay, we are going to be, in this session, continuing to practice our harder quadratics, and we're going to sketch them so that we reintroduce this all the way through the session, and we hopefully get super confident by the end of it. All right, so factorizing quadratics when a does not equal 1 and putting a solution onto a graph. So let's take a look at our first question. So 3x squared minus 8x plus 4. I need it to equal 0 if I'm going to find solutions. Without the equal 0, I'm just factorizing. With the equal zeros, I've created an equation. And as soon as I have an equation, I have something I can solve. So that's the difference between having the equal 0 there and not. As far as the factorizing goes, it's just the same process. So you can be ahead of me if you want. I'm going to be dropping the 3x into the 2 brackets. I'm going to look at the signs, neg pos, so it's neg neg. 3 times 4 is 12. I want to make 8, so that's 2 and 6. Got to make sure that I put that, well, actually, they're both negative, so I don't need to worry about the signs. I can just throw them in. Now I'm going to do any cancelling necessary, so I'm going to divide that by 3 to give me x minus 2. Nothing to do on the second one. So that is my equivalent version of my quadratic. It's the factorized version. It's still going to equal 0. And I am going to do my check. X times 3x is 3x squared, so that's perfect. Minus 2 times minus 2 is positive 4, so that's perfect. So I'm really happy to leave it there and say that is my answer. So the solutions, x is going to equal 2. Opposite sign, same digit, x equals 2. That's easy. But when we look at this one, there's a little bit more going on. So I'm going to show this one separately. So 3x minus 2, I want that to equal 0. So if I use my hopping method, I will end up with 3x equaling 2. And then when I cross through by that 3, I get divided by 3, don't I? Okay, so x has got to equal 2/3. X is equal to 2/3. But I don't need to write that out every time because there's a bit of a shortcut I can take. And I'll show you the shortcut. So if I've got what I've got there, 3x minus 2, I can literally take the 3, okay, and drop it under the 2, and then it's the same, x equals, change the sign, and keep your number. And that's just a quicker, more efficient way of doing it, really. So if I had 5x plus 7, let's say, 5 is going to go under there to give me x equals opposite sign, minus 7 over 5. And we do leave our fractions top heavy. We don't try and mess around with them. We don't try and put them into decimals. We literally leave it like that, and we will get full marks, okay? All right, so let's go back to this now. We've got our solutions. We need to draw our graph. So remember, we're only sketching, so we just need the axes. And we've got to think, right, I'm at 2. And I'm at 2/3, which isn't quite 1, is it? So it's going to come through fairly close. It's crossing positively, so I need to make sure that it does cross positively. And then I'm going to come this way this time. I want to keep some symmetry. Oh, it's done me a nice curve. So I drop it down, and there we go. That is enough of an idea of what the real graph would look like. It's not perfect. It might be narrower, it might be wider, but I've got the general feel for the actual graph that goes with the quadratic that we've been working with in the algebra. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so I want you to have a go. Let's clean this up. Let's get a bigger rubber on it. The go. So have a go at 5x squared minus 32x plus 12. It's going to equal 0. It has to equal 0 or I am unable to solve it. Quadratics are always solved when it equals 0. Really important fact. So pause the video, just have a go. It doesn't matter whether it goes well or not, does it? And then hit play when you're ready. Okay, so we've got 5x, 5x. I've got neg pos, so it's neg. 5 times 12 is 60. I want to make 32, so it's going to be 30 times 2. Doesn't matter which way around I stick it in. That equals 0. And then I'm going to divide that one through by 5. That's going to give me x minus 6. Nothing I can do on that second one. So 5x minus 2 equals 0. I want to go on and solve that. So I've got x equals 6. And I've got x equals positive 2 over 5. Now I've got everything I need. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so that we can keep it in view. Now I've got everything I need. I need to know the roots. First time I've used that word. The roots are the solutions. So where they cross the x-axis, that is often referred to as the roots. So if you're reading that language in your exam, they are talking about the solutions to the equation and where they live in the actual graph. Okay, so let's get an axis put down. There we go. Let me put some crossing points on. I'm going to do those in red. So I've got 2/5 is my smallest one. It's not even 1, so that's going to be close. 6 is going to be much further away. I can see that it's crossing at the positive, so it needs to cross on this positive part of the y-axis, which it will naturally when I draw that in. So let's draw that in. I'm going to draw it hopefully with the symmetry. There it is. And I could put on those key points if I wanted to. All right. So if you got that right, brilliant. Well done. If you can spot any errors as we go, then you're learning from them as we go. That's perfect. That's what we want. Okay, I'm going to do one more before I leave you to practice this. Okay. So we're going to do 3x squared minus 19x plus 20. It's got to equal 0, so it's an equation and I can solve it. I want you to pause and hit play after you've given it a go. All right, so this one, it's 3x. We have got neg pos, so we've got neg. I think I've done that on every question. 3 times 20 is 60. I want to make 19, so I am going to need 15 and 4. Doesn't matter which order I put them in. Do my division. So I'm going to divide that one by 3. It's going to give me x minus 5. Can't do anything with the other one. And I can now go on and solve. X is equal to 5. And then x is equal to 4 over 3. Just resize that. Oh, just going to take that with it. Let me just try that again. There we go. That's more like it. And last but not least, let's get those straight. That ought to be nicer. There we go. We've got our axes in. Make that look a bit better. And we're going to cross the 3 key points. So we've got our 5 and our 4/3. So 4/3 and 5. We want to be crossing in the positive y-axis, which we will be. And now we can just scoot through again, doing our best to keep it as symmetrical as possible. That's pretty good. And that would be my 20 on the y-axis. So if you got that right, really, really well done. You are now at the stage where you're just going to practice that. So it's just more practicing of factorizing those quadratics, but taking that extra step of finding the solution and then using the information, using the key information that we are finding in the algebra to produce a sketch of the graph. So these are your questions. So you've got plenty there to be practicing. Obviously, I will scroll up to the answers and then you'll do your thing of working on a question, marking and moving between the video. And that is session 2 done. So well done. And I will see you for session 3.